Hello everyone and welcome. I'm Sarah Liz and today I have a fun light up shaker birthday candle card for you today. I'm using the shaker birthday candles from Pixi Designs. There are 3 different candle designs and then there is a piece you can use to turn it into a treat box, and there are 3 different size gifts on a bow. I have cut each candle design from a different color of cardstock, and then on the yellow flame you can see there's an indentation where you would put the smaller flame, like a little orange piece of cardstock. And I am just going to fit the die right into that indentation. I want to cut a hole clear through the flame and the candle itself because I want the light from my light up mechanism to be nice and bright. And if I put 3 layers of cardstock on there, I was worried about it not being enough. So I ran that through my die cutting machine. It easily cut through both layers. And now I'm gonna turn these into shakers. So I am adding a little bit of glue. This is my Nuvo Deluxe adhesive, and I will glue that onto an acetate candle. There's another die that cuts out the entire candle without any of the designs because it's meant to be a shaker, right? And it's designed so beautifully. Sandra, who does all the Pixi stuff, it's her company. She does such a phenomenal job with all of these. And I was so excited to get this one this month. So I am adding some orange cardstock right into that little hole so that when my light is shining, it only needs to get through 1 layer of cardstock instead of shining through 3. Then I will add my yellow piece and just fit it kind of right over the top of the orange one. I'm also going to take my white jelly roll pen and I am going to add a little bit of ink right over the wick. I'm just being a little extra here. You could totally skip that step. So I've done the same thing with the other 2 candles and I'm just finishing up adding the flame onto there. And now they're ready to be turned into shakers. I'm going to use some 1/8 inch double-sided sticky foam tape. Just some strips, and I'm going to wrap that around the outside. It's perfect. You've got a little more than that 1/8 of an inch, so it's not too fiddly. I've taken the backer off of both sides of the tape, and that lets me curve it around the edges, which is particularly important as I get up here to the flame. I am going to leave room in that flame. If you don't want to make a light up card, you can skip that and just put a full layer of foam behind the flame. So this is going to be the back of my shaker, and I'm just using a hole punch to poke a hole in that so I can stick the light from my mechanism up through that hole. And then I'm adding some super thin shaker pieces. These are just confetti. They're as thin as cellophane. And so I'll get good movement in there. And they're not super bulky. I didn't want to have to add 2 layers of foam tape. And then I'll just lay my backer right onto there. Because my shaker elements they're just an iridescent, almost white. They're hard to see on video, but in person, you can see them beautifully. So I'm adding again the backer piece and shaker fill to the rest of my candles. And now I have 3 shaker candles. To create my background, I have just grabbed some light blue cardstock and I'm going around the edges with a little bit of ink. I thought about embossing this panel as well, which would be really beautiful, but it's already going to have a fair bit of bulk, and I didn't want to make the light up mechanism harder to install. So I'm just finishing up going all the way around all 4 edges, and I think that's enough to kind of draw your eye more to the focal point of our card. And then I'm just going to kind of figure out where I want my candles to sit. I want them staggered a little bit vertically, and to the left because I want to put this package, this little gift package on the right. That's going to be where our push mechanism goes. So I am just figuring out where I want them, and then right behind it, I'm putting a pencil dot to let me know where to poke my hole because my light up mechanism is going to come from all the way behind that light blue panel through and into the hole we've created in each of these candles, right? So it doesn't need to be perfect, but I want it to be close. I don't have a hole punch that will reach all the way into the middle, so I'm just taking my pokey tool and I'm going all the way in. This one is the one I have that is just the biggest when you get it all the way through. And this is an easy light. So this comes with 3 lights on wires, and you just kind of untwist them and separate them. And then there's a mechanism at the bottom. You pop the battery in and push the button, and that's it, right? No copper tape, no nothing. We're keeping it simple. So I am just threading 1 light into each of those holes, and I'm going to kind of figure out where they need to be. They're coming maybe 1/4 of an inch past the hole on the front. Okay, and then that is just some low tack tape. So if I need to move them, if they're too long or too short, I can do that. But guys, this is simple. This is pretty easy. And these candles are so perfect for it because they have that dimension anyway with the shaker element. So I am just kind of lining it up, right? I'm going to make that wire stand up a little, and I'm looking through the side to find the hole, and you can see it just pops right in there, and that's it. I'm not going to do anything else to affix that light inside the candle. That's enough. Okay, so here's the truth of it. I actually put just some orange printer paper on there to start with because I was afraid the light wouldn't be bright enough. And then I was like, oh, that's really bright. I can kind of see the mechanism. So I added a little bit of cardstock on top. So you could skip the first step and just add the orange cardstock. I'm sticking the tip of my glue bottle underneath the candle to secure that down. Again, if you're not doing the light up part, just, put the glue on the back like you normally would and put that down. Now, again, I'm kind of holding it sideways and I'm threading it through the hole on the flame. And once I have it there, I'm checking the light. I'm constantly checking. Anytime I'm working on an interactive card, I don't want to get halfway through the card and 3 steps ago, something quit working and I didn't realize it. So I'm going to add glue where I have cardstock touching cardstock, but most of this candle needs to be popped up because it's overlapping the other candle that is as thick as the foam tape. So I am just using my pokey tool and adding a little bit of those foam tape strips underneath this candle. If you aren't going to make it light up, then you don't ever need to be trying to wiggle foam tape underneath something that's already secured down. And actually, I'm going to get smart. I added most of my foam tape ahead of time here. And I'm just going to be careful as I'm wiggling the light into the flame. But it's pretty easy. I have not added any foam tape to the flame itself. That I will have to tuck under afterwards. It just seemed a little safer than risking setting it down in the wrong place and tearing my cardstock trying to get it back up. So I am just pulling that wire very gently to make it a little bit longer, and then I will tuck it into the candle flame. I think you can see this one best actually. And I will figure out my placement and then press gently on that foam tape to secure it. And then I'm going to add just a tiny little bit of foam tape underneath the flame as well. I just used my pokey tool. I've already removed all of the backing paper. I lift the flame, I tuck it under, I press it down. It's way easier than it looks. And that's it. The candles are done. So next, we're going to add a present to the bottom right. Originally, I was hoping that the button and battery pack would fit behind the present, so I wouldn't have to pop the entire back panel up on some foam tape, but that didn't work. So I have added my top layer of my box to the bottom layer of this present. And then there's this little ribbon that goes around it. And I love that it's kind of at an angle. It's super dimensional. I love it so, so much. I cannot say it enough. Pixi Does products are designed brilliantly. I'm using a stamp set to add the word push onto the ribbon, but certainly you could do that by hand, or a card like this. Like, I'm not going to put this through the mail unless it's going in a box with a gift. So a lot of times I just deliver them in person and I tell people where to push. So if you don't want to have to stamp that or handwrite it, that's an option too. I'm going to add this present to the bottom right corner where I want my battery pack to go. And that completes most of the front of our card. To add this to our card base and make sure that the button is where we need it to be, I am going to flip the whole thing over and I'm going to add some double-sided tape just to the back of that battery pack. So it's the battery and the button are all sort of connected on that housing. Then around the outside edge of my card, I have added a double layer of foam tape. Okay. I want to make sure that when the card is just sitting there, there's not so much pressure that that button is going to get pushed. I am using a little piece of temporary tape on the side just to kind of hold that battery pack in place while I'm flipping things over. And then I will remove the double-sided backer paper from the battery pack and from all of my foam tape. To make sure that I get this right, I am also adding some liquid glue. It's not a ton, it's just enough to make this float a little. So that's going on all of that foam tape and a little bit on the double-sided tape on the battery pack. I use both so that I get a little bit of wiggle room, but as soon as I press, it'll be held firmly in place. So I'm going to flip this over and lay it into the corner of my card. So I have the card butted up into the corner of my scoring tool, and then I'll butt the front of my card up into that same corner, and that way I know they are aligned perfectly. You could use anything that has a clean corner like that. Then I have stamped and heat embossed just a happy birthday strip sentiment that I will add on top of my shakers. I didn't want to cover up too much of that, and I didn't want to put the sentiment somewhere else and draw your eye away from those candles. I love them so, so much. Interactive cards are my absolute favorite. So anytime I can get two interactive elements on the same card, I am a happy camper. If you like this card, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing, and I will see you next time.